Hi, wonderfully created, and welcome back to Created. I am. In this installment, we are actually going to sew the simple trousers that are going to look good. So to measure yourself, draft your own block, find the timestamps and the tools you need, check out the description box. Stage 1. Cutting the material. There are two ways you can go about this. I will show you both. It's important you follow the method carefully so that you don't cut the wrong rotation of material. I'm going to cut out my back panel first. Using the first method. The first method is to cut on a fold. Take one singular material and fold it in half. This will allow us to cut out two back panels that are symmetrical at the same time. When folding, ideally you want the right sides touching, so what you can see is the wrong side. This means any drawings or markings will be on the wrong side. Once your material is smooth, lay your pattern piece on the fabric. Weigh it, pin it, or clip it down. You can draw the outline of your material, but I just went in and cut it out on my cutting mat. Once you've cut it out carefully, make sure to mark on the darts before you remove it. Lift it up and mark the top corners of the dart. To transfer the triangle tip, you might want to put your finger on the corner like I have, then use that, lift it up and mark it on the fabric using your fabric chalk. This dart needs to be on both panels that you've just cut out. So lift up the material carefully, not moving it around, and mark the marks on the other side as well. Again, you can place your finger at the corner of the dart, lift up your fabric and mark on the corner of the dart. If you prefer, you can use a pin and poke it through instead to find where the tip should be. Once done, take your ruler, your straight ruler, and connect this up carefully. This is one of the benefits of folding the material with the right sides together. It makes the wrong side easier to get to and draw on. Because of my past mistakes of sewing things together in the wrong order, I've taken my chalk and written on a B to mean back on both panels, and I wrote it on the wrong side of my material to make it clearer which side is the wrong side. Now let's cut out the front. For the front, I'm going to use the other method. Instead of cutting it on the fold and cutting out both panels at the same time, we are going to cut out the needed two front panels, but we're going to do it one at a time. The last method, cutting it on a fold, is a lot easier. The reason why I'm using this method and cutting them separately is because I want to rotate one of the panels so the design changes. If you do not have that concern, feel free to use the first method of cutting. Once you've laid down your fabric, make sure you can see the wrong side of the material. The right side should be facing down onto your worktop. Once your pattern is laid down, you can draw it on or just simply cut it out. If your dart is cut out from your pattern piece like this one is, make sure not to cut out the dart from the material. You need to keep that triangle inside like I have. The reason why I cut out the dart from my pattern piece is just to test different ways of doing it and see what's easier. I think it is easier to cut out the dart from your paper pattern. It's easier to draw. I'll show you in a moment. But do make sure you don't cut out the dart from your actual fabric. You can then trace your dart over. Now we need to repeat this process unlike before because we need to create the other side of the front panel. Before I remove this though, I want to label my pattern piece. I'm going to label it left. It doesn't really matter too much. This means that when I flip over the pattern, we just cut the left side of the pattern block. So now we need to cut the right side. So grab some fabric. Like last time, make sure the correct side is facing down and what you can see is the wrong side. You still want to see the wrong side of the material. This time, when you put on your pattern paper, make sure you turn it around so what you can see is right, not left. At this point, you can then clip, pin or weigh it down, mark it, or just go ahead and cut it out. And you guessed it, once you've cut it out, you can then trace your dart over. Now this is very important because even though you want two panels for the front and two panels for the back, those two panels need to be reflections, not identical. So on the wrong side, what I'm going to do is mark on a F with my chalk so that I remember that these are the front panel pieces. Let's cut out the waist. Take some material and fold it. Make sure your pattern is lined up. So where your pattern says fold, that is on the actual fold of your fabric. Weigh it down, pin it, and then cut it out. When you open it up, you should find that the material is long enough to wrap around your waist plus some extra. Stage 2. Let's dart it up. To help sewing the dart, I like to put a mark where the dart actually ends so it's clearer to see once the dart is folded. This will help make sure I stop at the correct position whilst sewing. Take your dart and pinch it in half. You should be looking at the wrong side of your fabric. Once you fold it, you can pin it in place. The diagonals of your triangle dart should be matched up. Because of the angle at the top, it might not line up perfectly with the waistline, but you want to make sure the diagonals of the triangle are matched up. Once you've completed the dart, make sure to do this for all 4 panels, the 2 front panels and the 2 back panels. Before you sew, I do advise you to use a scrap material to test the tension of your thread. It helps avoid issues later down the line. Once you're good to go, place your panel under your sewing foot. Backstitch at the top of the dart, then sew down carefully. Once you reach the end, you can then sew backwards into the dart. Then when you have some space, backstitch so you can secure the stitch. Complete this process for all 4 darts. Remember, you should be sewing on the wrong side. The wrong side is what you can see. Once done, your dart should look something like this. Stage 3. Fabric pieces, assemble. Take your front 2 pieces. You should be looking at the correct sides of your material. Place these correct sides together. If you want a more professional finish to your curve edge, serge the edges before you then put them together. Make sure that your crotch curves are aligned and take it to the sewing machine. Backstitch at the top and then sew down the curve, maintaining your 1 centimeter seam allowance or whichever seam allowance you have, then backstitch to hold in place. My zip is at the back of my trousers. If you want your zip at the front, instead of placing the 2 front pieces together, you should have done this step with the 2 back pieces. I've attached the front 2 pieces, so once done, open it up. At this point, if you choose, you can iron it down. Keep these front pieces here with the right side facing up, and then take the back panel, take one of the sides. Make sure the correct side of the back panel is touching the correct side of your front piece. Line it up so the side seam is aligned. Pin it at the waist and pin it all the way down if you choose to. We are going to sew down the side seam. Take the other back panel and place this on the front panel, right sides together. You want to be able to see the wrong side of the back panel. Clip it at the waist. If you want to pin it all the way down, I just pinned it at the top. We're then going to go and stitch this all the way down, maintaining a 1 centimeter seam allowance. If you want your zip to be at the front, reverse this. Attach the 2 back panels first, then place the right and left front panels on and sew the side seams. Stage 4, the waistband. Open up your material and make sure you can see the right side. Put the right side of the waistband on the correct side of the trousers, so right side is touching. You want this to align, so take your waistband and fold it in half, so you can find the halfway point. Put this halfway point in the middle of your trousers panel you've sewn together. Make sure the right sides are touching. You should be able to see the incorrect side of the waistband. Pin it in place. When we take it to the sewing machine, we are going to start sewing in the middle, just to make sure it's aligned. Sewing from the middle, we're going to sew to the end, backstitch, keep it in place, take it out, go back to the middle, and sew down the other side, maintaining the 1 centimeter seam allowance. Now that this is done, I'm going to zigzag the edge of the waistband. If you want to, you can serge this. Take this over to your ironing board. Because we made our waistband double thickness, we need to fold it. To help make sure we don't see any rough pieces as much as possible, we're going to take the seam we just attached at the waistband and flatten it upwards. Once done, we're going to fold the waistband in half on top of it. So notice that once I folded the waistband in half, you cannot see the seam we just sewed. Stage 5, the interfacing. So to help it keep its shape, it's good to add interfacing. I've made materials where I've not used interfacing, and I've made ones where I do, and I can definitely tell the difference. You don't have to use it, but it will help. I have some iron-on interfacing. So we're going to cut this interfacing so that it's 1 inch, which is our waistband final depth, and so that it's the length of our waist circumference. Take your trousers, making sure you can see the wrong side. Notice how the waist seam where I attached it is still facing upwards. Place the gluey or shiny side of the interfacing onto the waistband. The top of the interfacing should match with your halfway point that you folded and ironed down earlier. Iron this down carefully in place. Stage 6, the zip. Choose your zip. Make sure it's at least 9 inches. I am using an invisible zipper. Feel free to iron your zipper open a bit to make it easier to sew. We need to attach the correct side of the zip to the correct side of the material. The correct side of an invisible zipper is the part where you cannot see the teeth. So, make sure you can see the correct side of the material. If you follow along, you should be attaching your zip to the back of the trousers like I am. If you adjusted it at the start, maybe your zip is at the front or at the sides. This technique still applies. The key thing is, once you've put the right side of the zip on the right side of the material, make sure that the top of the zip is at the center of your waistband. To make it easier, like I am, you can use chalk to mark where the halfway point is, where you folded over and ironed down. Make sure you can see the right side of the zip, then flip it over so that the right sides are touching. Ignore any excess zipper tape, the extra material past the puller. Focus on the zipper puller. Make sure it's fastened up. That puller needs to match with the fold the middle of your waistband, like this. Then the edge of your curve, your crotch curve, and the edge of your zip should be matched up. This will roughly ensure that you have a 1 centimeter allowance once you sew it down. You want to follow the curve as you secure your zip. Make sure that you leave about 2 inches at the end of your curve to make sure it's comfortable when you wear your trousers. If your zip is longer than 9 inches like mine, as long as you've covered about 9 inches, you can stop. If you want to, you can cut off any excess later or just leave it if it's not in the way or bothering you. When you decide where you're ending, you can mark this on your material or use a clip or pin to signal where you're going to stop stitching your zip. Opening up your zip will make it easier to secure it as an invisible zip if that's what you're using. I'm going to attach this by using 2 lines of stitches. The first one is simply to attach the zip to the trousers along that curve. This will make it easier to work with the material and zip, so I can get as close as possible to the teeth so that it can be an invisible zip. If you want to, just go straight to the second stitch and try and get as close as possible to the teeth to have a clean finish. At the sewing machine, make sure to backstitch and then take your time and sew the zip onto the trousers at the crotch curve. If you're working towards your waist, make sure you stop halfway at the fold of the waistband. Do not sew all the way. Once done, switch your foot to a zipper foot if you haven't already. A zipper foot will enable you to get closer to the teeth. I couldn't find my other one, so I had to use this one and get as close to the teeth as possible. If you've reached this point so far, a very, very, very big well done. Open up this seam so that you can see the correct side of the zip and the correct side of the trousers. Once you're seeing the correct side of your piece so far, what you want to do is take the other side and fold it onto the right side of the zip and the right side of the other half of the trousers. If I rotate this, this is what the other side looks like. Notice I can see the wrong side of the zip. You are then going to make sure the waist is aligned. Make sure your zipper teeth puller, the puller, matches the midpoint, the folded part of the waistband. The edge of the zip where the material is should match with the edge of your crotch curve. Pin or clip this in place. To make sure I end my zip in the same position as the other side, I used a pin to indicate where the stitch should end. I referred to the point where my stitch ended on the other side when I sewed. Once done, you can now unzip your zipper so that you can sew it better. Use the same technique as before. Create an initial stitch line to simply hold the stitch in place. Then you can go back and get as close to the zipper teeth as possible. This is also a good technique because sometimes to secure the zip in place, you have to orientate it in a way that doesn't make it easy to get as close to the zipper teeth as possible. But if you do an initial stitch to keep the zip in place, you can then turn the material however you want to now focus on getting as close to the teeth as possible without worrying about it moving. Stage 4, the crotch. We need to now finish the crotch on the side where our zip is. Now, if you put your zip at the side of your trousers, you can simply just sew down using the similar technique I'm going to show you for finishing the crotch. Make sure the trousers is inside out. You want to be seeing the wrong side. Make sure that your zip is not tangled. It should be smooth all the way through. To help, zip up the zipper and that will make it easier to make sure it's not tangled. Once done, move the rest of the zip out of the way and make sure the crotch curves are matched up. What we're going to do is sew this. We're going to start as close as possible to where we ended the stitch for the zip, slightly overlapping. Then take our time, maintaining the 1 centimeter seam allowance and sew the curve to the end. Back stitching to keep it in place. Stage 8, the inner seam. Now we can sew the front to the back along the inside seams. Take your material and make sure you can see the wrong side. Find the crotch seam at the middle and match these two together. What we're going to do is sew the right sides together and the left sides together along that inner seam. If you start in the middle where your crotch is, it makes it easier. Backstitch and then sew carefully, maintaining a 1 centimeter allowance to the bottom. Once done, backstitch and go back to the middle of the trousers at the crotch line. Backstitch and sew the other side all the way to the bottom. You're almost done. We're pretty much finished. We just need some spice. Okay? Stage 9, the hem. If you have any excess at the bottom of your trousers, like me, trim it off. I zigzag the end just to keep it together. You can do this if you want to. If you are going to fold your trousers twice, you might not need this step. Next, to make sure it's a clean finish, you want to fold it in place. Make sure you're looking at the wrong side of the trousers. It will make the process easier. Fold the hem 1 centimeter up and iron it down. Do this for both. If you want this doubled up or you want a thicker finish, fold it up. You can then take this to your sewing machine and sew it down. You might want to change your thread so the color matches your material so that you have a more professional finish. I decided that I didn't want my stitch visible, so I'm going to do an invisible stitch. I'm going to show you how to do this. If you choose to, feel free. Take a sewing needle and take a thread that matches the color of your material. Make sure your thread is more than double the length of the circumference of the trousers hole. So all the way around, double that and have some extra. Thread it through your needle and create a secure knot. You might have to do 2 or 3 knots just to make sure that it's big enough to be secure. Put your needle from the back, from the wrong side, and take it through to the front. Once you've pulled your needle through, make sure the thread is taut, not loose, and is gone all the way through. Then take the tip of the needle and try and put it through the same hole you just created. This won't be perfect, so it will catch, but it will look almost invisible. Take your needle and pull it through the back to the front. Make sure it's not too tight, it should just lay, but it shouldn't be loose that the thread is hanging on the back. Once again, take the top tip of the needle and poke it through the same spot you just used. Make sure everything is lying in place, not too tight, not too loose. Skip about 1 to 2 centimeters depending on your preference, and then poke it from back to the front. Make sure you don't accidentally catch the thread and then pull it through. Then take the tip and poke it through that hole you just made. Continue this all the way around, skipping about 1 to 2, maybe 3 centimeters, but the less you skip, the more secure it will be. On the correct side, it will look like this. You will hardly be able to spot where the thread is, whilst on the back, you will see lines of thread where you continued the stitch. Now that you understand the concept, to make it quicker, you can actually just stay on the right side. Take the tip and poke it through, and then instead of going to the back, just feed it through the back and then bring it back to the front and pull it from the front. So you never have to pull it from the back. Even though you're going through the back, you just focus on looking at the front. Once you finish, take your needle and poke it through the front and pull it out at the back. Make sure it's not too tight, and then create a knot. Take your time so you can take that knot and push it down as much as possible to the fabric. You can do multiple knots if you need to secure it a bit more. Stage 10. We are now going to finish off the waistband. First, I'm going to secure down the waistband. You don't have to do this step, but it's useful. I'm going to use some fusion tape. Now I'm only using it on this type because sometimes fusion can show through the fabric once you've secured it on, but this is the inside anyway, so it doesn't matter. Take a small strip of fusion tape and then pop it down. Fold your waistband over, we're just folding it where we already ironed before. Take your iron and apply some heat. You can also apply some steam to secure the fabric down using the fusion tape, depending on your instructions. Do not leave your iron on your fabric too long or else you will burn it. It shouldn't take too long for the fusion to work. When you get near the end, near the zip, you want to make sure everything's tucked in. The rough edge should be inside. Grab your fusion tape ready to go, but make sure to tuck in the excess. We're going to fold down the excess tape at the top like this into a corner, then we can fold down the rest of the waistband. If you want to, you can also tuck this edge in just to make sure it has no chance of poking out. Then take your iron and secure it down. Make sure to be careful of your hand if you're using your hand like I am, just to keep it in place temporarily. This is what the right side looks like. Do this on both sides of your waistband, following the same technique. If you want to, you can add some more fusion tape if you need to, but that should thereabouts be okay. Zip it up and make sure everything's working and that the zip is not going to be caught at the top of the waistband. To add extra security, you can now stitch down along the seam of the waistband, either straight in the seam called a stitch in the ditch, or just above or just below, whatever your preference is, and you can use your sewing machine. I decided to use the invisible stitch method that I used to finish off the bottom of the trousers. It's so awesome when you come back and tell me your questions, so please let me know how I can help you in the comments below. If you're experienced, share your knowledge. We love it. A special shout out to all the supporters, especially those on Ko-fi or supporting any other way. I'm going to try and make these supporter shout outs more regular. If you're looking to beef up your sewing station, do use the links in the description box. But of course, most of all, I want you to remember that you are and have always been wonderfully created.